All right, everybody. We are back. It's been quite a long time since I've uploaded. I think like over a week. So I'm super sorry about that, but I was omega sick. I had COVID and strep throat. I'm just now finally feeling like myself again. So you already know we had to hop back in the studio and bring some more Pokemon Showdown content to you guys, or Pokemon Gen 9 more appropriately, because we're not actually going to even be on Showdown at all for this video. But before we get into the main subject here, which is my top 10 favorite Pokemon to use and how to use them in this meta, let's talk about Monday Night Mons. It's coming back for the second time around. Our first one was 2 weeks ago. Had to take a week off because I was so sick. But Gen 9 singles tournament on Showdown, as always, $100 straight out of my pocket, straight to the winner's pocket. So it's winner take all. It's going to be tomorrow at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. The signups are actually live right now at start.gg/monsday. So get on in there. It's going to be super fun. We had 125 people come last time, and we want to either break that or get somewhere close to it. So guys, definitely pull up. It's going to be a really fun time. So that said, without further ado, let's get into my top 10 Pokemon. And you know, even though it's top 10, I have a two-way tie for 10th and 11th place, I guess. So let's take a look. All right, so tied for 10th, I have Screamtail. Screamtail is a fun Pokemon to use. It's definitely like a little weird at first because it doesn't really accomplish all that much, right? And there are a couple sets you could run on this guy to make it work. But this one, the Wish Protect Encore set, I think is probably the most effective. Any setup sweeper, any hazard setter, any kind of like passive mon really hates dealing with this guy. You just come in, either heal yourself or heal something else on your team, encore them to lock them into an unfavorable move. And yeah, I mean, it's just so annoying to deal with. And you could run this with Calm Mind, you could run this with Stealth Rock. You know, a lot of options for Screamtail. It has an insane support move pool, but this is just the set that I personally like to use, and that's what I'm going to have on all these guys, right? Like, there are a bunch of sets available for them, but I'm going to primarily focus on my set of choice. So, yeah, this thing is just great. There are not a lot of clerics in this meta. Heal Bell is gone from a lot of mons. Wish is just really the only way to heal something up, and of course Healing Wish as well. But yeah, this plays a unique role, and it's also very hard to kill. The EVs you could also mess around with. Like, I like a little bit more Fizz Def because it comes with higher Spadef naturally, but you can tweak it to whatever fits the needs of your team. Yeah, Screamtail, really good, really underrated mon. I think even still, like, a lot of people have been talking about how good it is recently, but I still feel like I don't see it on the ladder that much. And yeah, again, a lot of sets you could use with this. If you need a rocker, put rocks on it. If you need speed control, put T-Wave on it. If you want to like potentially end game with it, you put Calm Mind on it. And then I have Terra type of Steel. It's just what I stole from Pokemon is Fun, formerly ranked 1 player and a very strong player overall. So yeah, I think this mon is cool and fun. All right, also tied for 10th, but I would say slightly edging out Screamtail, who I guess is probably the honorable mention for this list. I got Dragapult. Pokemon that was so filthy last gen and continues to be filthy this gen. He got a couple new toys as well. You could go Terra Ghost and use Terra Blast for that reliable Ghost Stab. But for this, I have Terra Dragon. If it doesn't show the Pokemon's Terra type, it just means that it's Terra on their primary type. So Terra Dragon Choice Band with Dragon Darts is just so strong. Like, this Pokemon goes absolutely crazy with the banded Dragon Darts. You kill so many things in one hit. Like, I was even leading with this and just nuking something on the first turn. And, you know, it breaks Focus Sash, right? So you could destroy Glimmora. Breaks Multiscale, so you can destroy Dragonite. So a lot of good stuff going for this guy. And I think he's just really fun to come in and click buttons with. Like, the Spec set is good. The Hex Will-O-Wisp Boots Pivot sets are good too. I've even seen Thunderwave and Wisp on the same set, just to, like, you know, really annoy things, and you pick the status of your choice on their opponent, the opponent in front of you. But I don't know if I would ever play that. This is definitely the vibe, though, this set right here. Phantom Force is kind of ass. It's just there mostly as filler. You could even replace it, but sometimes you do need that Ghost Stab just to finish off a game. That said, you don't really want to give people extra turns in this game. in this meta. It's just too dangerous, and there's, you know, ways to play around that Phantom Force. A lot of good dark types, some good normal types. I'm thinking particularly like a Terra Dragonite. But yeah, there's ways to play around that move still, so, you know, you're probably not ever going to click it. But the other 3 moves definitely get a lot of mileage for you. So I'm a big fan of Pult in this meta. And he's just fun. You know, he's your classic strong, fast guy. Finally, in my opinion, it's optimal to play off his physical attack versus his less good special attack. But his special move pool is insane. So I think there's definitely still a place for the Choice Spec set as well. Again, this is just my preferred set that we're going to go over for each of these guys. All right, so coming in at number 9, we got Iron Valiant. I really like this Pokemon. He's so fun, like, just to come in and click buttons with. One of the best revenge killers in the game. With a Scarf, he's faster than most of the meta. +1 Roaring Moon and a couple other things do outspeed him. But yeah, I personally like the Choice Scarf set over Booster Energy, just because you can come in multiple times and still have +1 speed. But Booster Energy and Choice Specs are also really good on this guy. I mean, he's fast enough without a speed boost to still outrun most things. And, you know, if you have specs, you could actually just mow things down. But I like the Scarf set just because, like, I think this Pokemon's best role is that revenge killer, that Choice Scarfer, potentially even that end gamer. Like, you get rid of their Fairy Resist and just click Moonblast and win. But yeah, Valiant has a lot of good stuff going for it. You can replace Thunderbolt with like Psyshock if you want, if you're afraid of things like Amoonguss or Clodsire, right? But I like these 4. Obviously, you have your dual stab, and I like CC just for like Blissies and Ting-Lus and stuff, because Ting-Lu will cut your special attack to actually be lower than your attack, so CC hits them harder, and it has a lot higher BP than Moonblast. And then you got Shadow Ball for Gholdengo, Thunderbolt for Corv. I like Terra Ghost because it allows you to one-shot Gholdengo, and also it allows you to dodge the E-Speed from Dragonite in the end game, which can be really, really, really important to helping this guy win. You know, you just Terra Ghost and click anything that's not Shadow Ball if they're Terra Normaled. But yeah, Iron Valiant, man, this Pokemon is raw. It can pick a whole team apart, and like having to consciously play around it for a whole game is very annoying, especially when it hits this speed tier. I believe it's base 116. And you just jack that up into overdrive with the Choice Scarf. Thing is so dirty. All right, now at number 8, we got Chien-Pao. Dude, this Pokemon is cheap, aka, you know, Mega Weavile. This thing is just a savage. I like the heavy duty boot set, but I'm honestly starting to be a little bit more partial to Band and maybe even Life Orb, but I think Band is probably the best set now. Boots is nice though, just because, you know, hazards are so huge in this meta. You have to really outplay your opponent to make sure that you keep your field clear. And, you know, there are a couple ways you can build your team to like guarantee that you win that early hazard war, but it's tough and it requires a lot of investment. So, you know, as good as that set can be, the Choice Band one, it's also risky, right? Like, you can only come in so many times. Being weak to rocks, very difficult to deal with, especially because, you know, a lot of teams that you will build, you'll want to have other Pokemon that are weak to Stealth Rock on them, and you don't want to have too many of those, right? So, you know, Boots has its place, Band has its place. Again, really depends on the rest of the makeup of your team and how weak you are to hazards. And for this, I just run the triple stabs. So Ice Spinner, you can run Icicle Crash if you're a gambling man. I'm a pussy, so I play Ice Spinner. And Crunch and Punch, and SD. So yeah, I mean, this thing can rip up a whole team if you get the +2. If you get the +4, forget about it. You can really just end careers. You can play Ice Shard on the set as well, either over Sucker Punch or as your only Ice Stab. It really just depends what you want or need. But yeah, Chien-Pao does its thing, man. You Terra this thing to Dark. Again, if it doesn't say the Terra type, it's just Terra to their primary, which is Dark for the Dark Legendaries. And this thing can eat you alive, man. No, literally with Crunch. And just do like an absurd amount of damage to Corviknight and other things that are supposed to check it. So yeah, definitely a good late game cleaner with the Terra Dark. And you get a lot of value out of him throughout the game with the boot set, right? He can come in and revenge kill. He's the fastest mon in the meta at 135 base. You could even run Adamant on this thing if you want that extra power too. Adamant Band is just way too strong. But yeah, Chien-Pao is absolutely insane, man. This Pokemon just shreds teams, just comes in and does his thing, you know? All right, so next, at number 7, we got Glimmora. So this is just like hazard setting incarnate. I like the 2-attack Stealth Rock and Mortal Spin set, although you could drop one of the attacks, or you could drop Mortal Spin for spikes in addition to Stealth Rock. Obviously, just by getting hit on the physical side, you put your toxic spikes out. Sometimes you want to save this thing at the 1 HP from the sash just to put him in on like a U-turn or some kind of physical attack, get those toxic spikes up. He's kind of good into like other lead Pokemon, stuff like Great Tusk. You have your Energy Ball, right? If you Terra Flying, if you really want to like build that momentum at the beginning of the game, you can Terra Flying on the Great Tusk lead and make it harder for them to kill you. Make it easier to guarantee that your hazards go up, right? Just 2-shot it with Energy Ball or something like that. But I've also seen sets that use Choice Scarf, right? Choice Specs even, to guarantee that you kill on the lead v lead matchup, and then you just come back in and get your rocks up at a different time. So depending on what you need on your team, this guy can obviously run a couple different move sets. You could also run Terra Grass just to get the stronger Energy Ball and live an Earthquake that way, or Headlong Rush, whatever they want to use. But yeah, this guy's got a couple different ways to be played. I personally like this one though. Max speed, max special attack, just make sure he does a lot of damage, make sure he gets those hazards up, and then Mortal Spin, even if you're not getting rid of hazards, could be so nice to just poison one of their guys, whether you read a switch or just poison like the Garchomp that's in front of you after he puts a layer down. Glimmora is definitely nasty. It goes on so many teams, man. Yeah, not too much to say about this Pokemon. He's pretty cut and dry. Like, what you see is what you get with him. I also can't wait for them to release his real sprite from the game, because, you know, this is him, like, closed up, but when the flower is open, this Pokemon looks so damn cool. Especially watching him, like, run around in-game in, like, the Area Zero caves and shit. Man, it's so cool. But yeah, Glimmora, definitely so useful in this meta. Even if people are kind of solving how to play around him, like, I think he's not as good as he was at the beginning of the meta, just because people have figured out ways not to trip the toxic debris, ways to play that Great Tusk versus Glimmora opener, and like, when do you switch in your Gholdengo to be immune to Mortal Spin or to be faster than him and finish him off with a special move. Like, there's a lot of back and forth that goes on with this mon, particularly those three, the three Gs, Gholdengo, Great Tusk, and Glimmora. There's that little rock, paper, scissors between them, and yeah, it's definitely an interesting little meta. But this Pokemon, he's great. He just makes the field dangerous for your opponent. You can often get like very early game wins set up off of this guy. Like, their tanks having to come in and get poisoned could be so awful for them. And obviously he hits pretty hard. Like, Earth Power hits Gholdengo, Energy Ball hits Great Tusk. Like, such good coverage. And he has other options like Power Gem, Dazzling Gleam. Trying to think what other attacking moves he learns, but those are really the only ones that you see. Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave too, for that other side of your stab. All right. Next up at number 6 is Dragonite. So Dragonite, man, he not even necessarily got a glow up because he's always been good, but he still kind of got a glow up. I mean, he got some new toys to play with, namely being able to Terra Normal and kill you with Stab Extreme Speed. Just so good. Multi-scale, so good in this meta, where like being able to take that one extra hit is extremely valuable. And then his coverage obviously has always been great, right? EQ and Ice Spinner, like ground plus ice, is always going to be phenomenal coverage. It's quite difficult to resist that. And Dragonite takes full advantage. You could also go Fire Punch in that last spot. You could even go Terra Fire instead of Terra Normal, just to allow your Fire Punch to be stronger and hit Corviknight extra hard, or to just be weird to hit with super effective coverage, right? Like Fire Resist, Ice, and Fairy, which are super effective on Dragons. So Dragonite can definitely get a lot of mileage out of that as well. I've even seen Choice Bands start to pop back up. Boots obviously are so good in this meta where like keeping hazards up is not super hard, and where like a lot of players will focus their entire game plan around keeping rocks up. But you know, this, again, just my preferred way to play D-Knight is with the boots set. I'm kind of losing faith in Ice Spinner and starting to lean toward Fire Punch just because Corviknight's getting really, really popular again. But I don't know. We'll see. I like Ice Spinner for other Dragonites, for other dragons in general. But again, it's Dragonite. He's got a move pool as wide as the Atlantic Ocean, right? So you can pretty much do whatever you feel like is the play for your team, right? I would never take anything I say in these videos as gospel. Again, guys, like Pokemon is so dependent on how the rest of your team is built, right? Like no one moveset is going to be the best on every single team ever. But this is definitely one of the definitive ones for Dragonite. All right, now we are about to crack into our top 5, right? And before we do that, I actually meant to say this at the very, very beginning of the video after the Monday Night Mons announcement. But I also just want to talk about the context in which I'm going to be ranking these Pokemon. And they're, you know, based on my own tastes, right? So let's talk about my playstyle. I'm not necessarily a hyper offense player, even though that's what's very strong and typically good in Gen 9. But I'm definitely far from a stall player. Like in Gen 8 and really all the gens before that, I would say my style is balance. Like you play 3 or 4 bulky mons and then like 3 or 2 offensive, like strong right off the bat, either choice users or like, you know, a nice boots offense mon or like a pivot or something, you know, like definitely a little bit of volt turn action doesn't hurt, but basically just making like, you know, smart switches into your walls, but not having like the craziest walls ever where like you have a switch into everything on every turn. Like you still got to predict and get some turns right and shit like that. And like a nice split between defense and offense. But Gen 9, obviously offense is so favored, right? So the way I've been playing it this time is I have like 1 or 2 mons that can take hits. And then the rest, I just got to like get the turns right and play the frail, strong mons very, very efficiently and smartly in order to like stay ahead in the sack war and get the kills, right? So also want to shed some light on the fact that like the 11 Pokemon that we're showing here, pretty much every single team that I've built in Gen 9 and played seriously on the ladder has been made up of 6 of these 11 mons. So yeah, my current team is like I think 5 of the top 6. But either way, yeah, you can kind of see like this is one of those tanky mons. Offense, offense, offense. Basically a component of offense, even though it's not out here to do damage necessarily. And offense. But he is a kind of like bulky offense guy. So yeah, balance and bulky offense are typically my style, but Gen 9 has kind of forced me to adapt that into a more offensive style, which I really like. You know, I feel like it's made me a better player. It's made me smarter with the switches that I make and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, shout outs to this meta, man. It's just so damn fun. All right, let's move it into the top 5. All right, so weighing in at number 5, we got the golden guy, Gholdengo himself. This thing, man, he is just so useful. There's infinite utility to having this mon on your team. I personally like the Choice Scarf set. He is a little bit too slow for the meta, in my opinion, otherwise. Being slower than a max speed Great Tusk is kind of an L, especially because you hit him really hard with Make It Rain, right? If they're not AV or like, you know, invested into SpDef, you can kill the shit out of them with Make It Rain, especially if they're like a little bit chipped. I'm not exactly sure what the calc is, but it hits really hard. So if you do get the guess right and come in on the rapid spin or the fighting move against Great Tusk, excuse me, you can just kill him immediately in response. And you can also revenge a ton of things by having this high speed. You can trick a bulky mon, right? Like a Ting-Lu or a Blissey or something like that, and just get it stuck with a Scarf, and then it's pretty much useless for the rest of the game. Trick a setup mon like D-Knight or Annihilate or something like that. I just think this set covers the most ground. I like Terra Fighting, so you can live like a Chien-Pao or King Gambit Sucker Punch and then kill it back with Focus Blast or Make It Rain, depending on who you're fighting. Yeah, this mon, he's just so good, man. Blocking Defog, Rapid Spin, and Mortal Spin all at the same time. Like if you're playing with hazards, which, you know, pretty much every team should be in this meta, I think this is just one of the greatest things to ever happen to you. If you like those hazard stack teams, man. And again, there's no reason for you not to like hazard stack teams in a meta like this. So yeah, he just hits really hard. He has great dual stab, great coverage with Focus Blast. Trick is an amazing asset to have. And the fact that you can't status him, like, it just takes so many threats off the table. I hope they don't ban him, because, like, he is possible to deal with. And, like, you know, I don't know. He's tough to deal with, but it's possible. And there's so many strong mons in this meta that I don't feel like Gholdengo is, like, immediately one of the top problems, but he is very centralizing. Like, his usage rate is off the charts right now. I think it's something like 32%. So being on 1 out of 3 teams, I don't know, maybe that is a cause to get him out of the meta. But yeah, this guy's just so good. And there's no reason not to play him, I don't think. I think if you are making a serious Gen 9 team, you really need to have Gholdengo on it, or at least consider him, or play like 3 counters to him so he can't mow your team down. Like, the only thing I can defog on this guy is Mold Breaker Hawlucha. Just think about that. And like, the only thing that can do any status moves to this guy other than that is, what, Toadscruel? Or like if they had a Mold Breaker guy with status moves, I don't know. Yeah, Gholdengo is amazing. He literally is as good as gold. All right, number 4. Ting-Lu, aka Wu-Ting Forever, aka Wu-Ting Clan. Damn, dude, this thing is so goated. It just lives every single hit. The defensive spread I have on here, you can play with it a little bit. This is, you know, very heavily favoring Spadef, but you can invest a little bit more into Fizdef and just rely on Vessel of Ruin to make your special bulk higher. But dude, this thing's so good. And you could also put Ruination over one of the hazards if you already have enough hazards on your team, or you don't really care about double stacking. But the main advantage to Ruination is that you can pop Gholdengo's Balloon. Balloon Gholdengo, otherwise, is a pretty good answer to you. And honestly, even Choice Scarf Gholdengo can kind of be a good answer to you. Even if you do kill him with Earthquake, if he tricks you that Scarf, like, you're kind of in some trouble. Your Ting-Lu is just out of commission, or like significantly less useful. But he is easily the best phaser, I think, probably that Pokemon's ever seen, but definitely in the Gen 9 meta, right? Like, you set all these hazards up and then you whirlwind them out. It's kind of like Skarmory, except this thing's on average bulkier than Skarmory, right? On the physical end, or like, you know, if you fully invested into Spadef, I guess maybe you kind of do rival Skarmory's physical bulk, like if you go straight up into one of them. But still, yeah, he's just so useful, man. And he hits back pretty hard with Earthquake. It's not as common for every single team to have a ground immunity anymore. You could Terra to Ghost to prevent people from rapid spinning on you for free, right? That's one like downside this mon has. If you don't Terra him to Ghost and you want to save it for something more valuable or offensive, you can kind of just bring your Great Tusk in. Ting-Lu loses that matchup 1v1 for sure. Close combat hits you really hard. Spin is easy to get. Even if they click knockoff expecting a switch, you don't want to lose your leftovers. But still, I mean, this guy can get so much done. He can get the setup sweepers out of there before they get too strong, like absorb a hit from them and then whirlwind them out. And then their next guy comes in on a whole bunch of layers. I love this Pokemon, bro. He's super, super durable. So, you know how I was talking about, you know, kind of that role compression of having 1 or 2 mons on your team that are just able to eat as many hits as you possibly can from the rest of the meta. And like whatever slips through the cracks, just worry about it with offense, you know, fight fire with fire to get rid of that. I think Ting-Lu is great as that lone or 1 of 2 defensive mons on your team. I think he's a really good partner for Screamtail. You know, the Fairy Psychic plus Ground and Dark combo, you have some pretty good defensive coverage across the board. And Screamtail can pass Wish to Ting-Lu, which is super nice because he normally doesn't have reliable recovery, right? He only has leftovers. So I think it could be a really devastating combo to some offensive cores, or like, especially later game when, you know, their wall breakers are dead, or like, you know, you've taken care of some of the offensive threats on their team. It could be really tough to wear down this core of Ting-Lu plus Screamtail Wish passing. But yeah, not much else to say about Ting-Lu. He just is one of the most all-around solid defenders. Great phaser, great hazard setter. So fun to play with. All right, now we're going into the big 3 here. Great Tusk. Formerly number 1 in usage. Now I think Gholdengo has him beat by quite a bit. And it's easy to see why, but they also go great together, right? You could have your Great Tusk as a hazard setter, or you could have him as a hazard remover, you know, a rapid spinner, or you could have him as both. But this mon is so good, and you're going to see an item on here that is a Max Ketchum exclusive, at least to my knowledge. You know I came up with this, but somebody else may have independently invented it. But Eject Pack as the item, I cannot stress enough how many games this has won me. Just by like reading the switch to their Corv, clicking CC, and then going out to like another Pokemon on my team that could destroy Corv. It's so dirty, bro. Sometimes it does betray you. Like if you're in that hazard war with Glimmora at the beginning, right? Like you'll have to hit it with Headlong Rush and then get switched out and have a Mon on your team come in and take T-Spikes. But if you have like another Poison Mon on your team, for example, you could just absorb those and then finish it off with the Poison guy. So, just be careful you don't play yourself into a corner with this. And yeah, other than that, man, Great Tusk is so good. There are so many different spreads you could run on him. You could put like an Assault Vest and invest into Spadef. You could invest into Fizdef and run Body Press. You could run even Choice Scarf, I've seen. You could run Leftovers, Heavy Duty Boots. So many different items and EV spreads work for this guy. I personally prefer the Fall Offensive. He's very naturally bulky physically. I think he has like 298 defense with 0 investment and a hell of a lot of HP too. So I like letting this guy hit as hard as possible, using him as like a pseudo pivot, you know, that one time at the eject pack, reading their switch to something that, you know, you don't necessarily kill, but isn't immune to your attack, right? Ground and fighting, obviously things are immune to both of those, but you just get the read right and then switch to your wall breaker and you destroy whatever they switched in. So nice to combo that. And then you get knockoff to deal with Gholdengo and just take leftovers and rocky helmets off of other guys. And I think he is really the quintessential spinner of this gen. You also got Iron Treads, who's a little bit faster than him and can get the spin off against a couple more things. But yeah, I think Great Tusk is overall still the best. He hits so much harder. He has better Fizz Def. He has worse special bulk for sure. But yeah, man, this guy is such a raw ass Pokemon. I like Terra Water on this because you begin resisting water and ice, which are two, you know, typical moves aimed at Great Tusk. I was using Terra Steel for a while just because it makes you not weak to water anymore. You resist ice, you resist grass, you resist fairy, you resist flying, you know, several types that are typically aimed at Great Tusk. But I've been messing with water lately, and I'm actually kind of a fan of it. But there's not really, in my opinion, like an end-all be-all best option on Great Tusk for his Terra type. And it's really kind of like an in case of emergency, like early game Gambit, if you want to make sure you get the hazards out of there and kill their setter or something like that. But otherwise, you typically want to save your Terra for a Mon that's going to do more with it. But yeah, man, Great Tusk. Cannot go wrong by putting this guy on a team. I think, you know, again, he kind of belongs on every single team. He's just so good. Such good glue, right? I, in another video, compared him to Landorus T. I definitely stand by that comparison, right? Landorus T, you know, he's got like the better move pool, the better special bulk, he had Intimidate, whatever. And he's actually a little bit stronger. But Great Tusk, being able to rapid spin instead of having to defog, and being able to set rocks, and having a stab CC at his disposal. Like, man, there's just so much going for this guy. And yeah, again, really think he could go on pretty much every team. So let's go into our runner-up, our second place finisher. And that's going to be Meowscarada. And I honestly, at the beginning of the game, I thought this was going to be like my go-to Mon, put him on everything. It's like, wow, an awesome Weed Cat Pokemon with Protean and a cool ass signature move that does a ton of damage and one of the few knockoff guys and U-turn and these crazy stats. And then, you know, we saw the rest of the Dex's stats and we're like, hold up, like are the starters even that good? But then after like a little bit of a lull at the beginning of the game, I started playing this guy a lot more and he's got some serious utility. 123 base speed, it is not wasted on this guy. Like, being the fastest thing in the meta with a Choice Scarf, or like almost pretty much the fastest thing that you could play, just really goes such a long way. You're faster than Iron Valiant and Roaring Moon at +1, which is common for both of them, right? Whether it's Booster Energy or Choice Scarf for Iron Valiant, or Dragon Dance or Booster Energy, or I guess Choice Scarf as well for Roaring Moon, right? And you kill both of them with Play Rough, as long as they don't Terra away from their normal typings. But yeah, this thing is just so good, man. And having U-turn at your disposal, really useful. Just being able to pivot on their switches and put in your guy that counters whoever they brought in. and just obviously, you know, picking things off and then putting in a mon that's like hard for them to answer. Meow is amazing early and late game, right? Like when this is the last mon left on your team and they have like 1 or 2 mons left, you're faster than all of them. So as long as they're chipped or they're weak to fairy or weak to one of your moves, you know, you can polish off the rest of the team with them, with him. And yeah, dude, I just absolutely love Meowscarada. That speed is so useful. You can go band, you can go adamant scarf, but I think just being the fastest that you could possibly be, so you outrun every roaring moon and every iron valiant that you run into at +1, man, it's so good. And also you're faster than Chien-Pao with the scarf, right? Not a Chien-Pao that has a scarf, but you're faster than non-scarf Chien-Paos with this, and Chien-Pao is not really running scarf. It needs the power or the ability to come in on hazards with boots. So yeah, this thing, man, I was super overhyping it before the game came out, super underhyping it when the game was out for a little bit, and now I've really landed on appreciating this mon and its playstyle so much. Absolutely love Weed Cat, bro. And now my absolute #1 favorite mon, and I mean, this should really probably come as no surprise. This thing is so broken. I'm talking, of course, about my boy Chi-Yu, aka Cheese You, aka Tapu Zaza, aka the fish. This thing is gross, bro. And I heard Blunder call him Mons Neiman with the beads of ruining your career. It's so jokes, bro. But yeah, bro, Tapu Zaza is just insane. This is literally Tapu Lele with better offensive type coverage, worse bulk, worse move pool, but better special attack, better speed. His ability, you know, cutting your Spadef basically functions the same way that Psychic Terrain would, except it works for all your moves and not just your Psychic moves, right? Like Tapu Lele would be clicking Moonblast most of the time, which doesn't even get the boost from Psychic Terrain, but this thing sure does. And man, this is the wall breaker to end all wall breakers. Like, Overheat just fries everything in front of you. You know, any Clodsire comes in, he takes like 75% to U-turn with specs. I'm sorry, to Overheat with specs. Nothing is taking 2 Dark Pulses or 2 Flamethrowers unless it's like a super resist. This thing just smashes everything in front of it. And you can even go for flinch scams with Dark Pulse. Sometimes I've just put my full confidence in this thing getting the flinch, and it works every time. Heart of the cards, baby. Player diff, you know. And I like Terra Fighting on this just to give him more coverage, right? Like the only thing this mon really lacks, well, 2 things. 2 things this mon lacks are speed and coverage in his move pool, right? So I like going Fighting because it lets you hit other Chi-Yu for the one shot. Roaring Moon, who is one of the few things that can switch into you and threaten you back. Ting-Lu, Tyranitar. Trying to think if like any other big threats get answered by the Terra Fighting, but I run Terra Grass on him as well. At this point, I would say you either want to run Fighting or Fire or Dark, just because doubling down on your stabs with this, oh my god, it's so gross. So you literally melt everything in front of you. So yeah, you could replace Terra Blast with like Psychic or some random move and go Terra Fire or Terra Dark if you just want to like smash everything up. But I personally like the coverage, at least the way that my team is built. It feels like a really good and valuable answer to a lot of things that I need covered. So yeah, we're gonna see Chi-Yu taking home #1. Definitely the most fun mon to use. Like my current team, one of my favorite strats is I pop that Great Tusk eject pack on their switch in, say they go to a Corv, I CC, boom, bring in Chi-Yu, and just fry something. Like they gotta pick. Is it their Corv that dies, or is it something else in the back getting 2-hit KO'd? I don't know. It's up to them. I'm just the skilled player on the other side of things, clicking buttons, right? And yeah, that's gonna be the video though, guys. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what your favorite Pokemon are in the comments. Of course, drop a like on the video if you enjoyed. Drop a sub to the channel. I'll definitely be uploading a little bit more tomorrow. Again, don't forget, we're gonna have Monday Night Mons, $100 prize pool straight out of my pocket. So it'd be really nice if you guys could come through and support. Either drop some subs or donations to the Twitch channel, and that'll keep the series alive, right? Because if it's coming out of my pocket, well, you know, if you guys are supporting me, I'm gonna give that right back. So good luck to everybody who wants to participate. Again, start.gg/Monsday. If you want to catch it live, it'll be on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/MaxKetchum. And yeah, show some love in the comments. Thanks for watching. Peace.